I'm still shaking. 20 minutes ago, 2 cops showed up with handcuffs. You're under arrest. My stomach drops. Arrested? For what? I'm backing away, hands trembling when Clara appears. My wife, who watches baking shows in pajamas every night. She glances at their badges. Something flickers across her face. Gentlemen, step back from my husband. Her voice cold, commanding. I don't recognize it. One officer grabs my arm. Clara moves. Everything blurs. I hear thuds, shouts, then silence. When I look up, I can't even describe what I'm seeing. All I know, the woman standing in our doorway isn't the one I married. Comment. Ever felt like you don't really know someone? The deck was perfect. $8,000 of cedar perfection built exactly to HOA. Specific. I'd surprised Clara for our 12th anniversary. Hired Ryan Carter, the contractor everyone in Maple Ridge recommended, and watched him spend 3 weeks building what I thought would be our little slice of backyard paradise. Clara came home from work that Friday evening, dropped her briefcase, and just stared. Ethan, she whispered, walking onto the smooth planks barefoot. This is really something. The neighbors came over that weekend for a barbecue. Mrs. Patricia Wilson from next door brought her famous potato salad. And even the Johnsons from across the street showed up, which never happens. Everyone admired the craftsmanship, the clean lines, and how perfectly it complemented our corner lot. Clara kept checking her phone, though, which was weird. She'd smile at the compliments, nod at the right times, but her fingers kept dancing across that screen like she was conducting some invisible orchestra. The violation notice arrived on Monday morning. $200 per day fine, effective immediately for unauthorized construction exceeding maximum deck height by 6 in. I read it 3 times. 6 in. Ryan had measured everything twice, showed me the blueprints, and even got Valerie Edwards, our HOA president, to sign off on the preliminary plans. I called him immediately. Ethan, man, that's impossible, Ryan said. And I could hear genuine confusion in his voice. I built to exact specifications. Valerie approved everything, every single things. He promised to come over with his original measurements, his permits, everything. Clara's reaction was the strangest part. She barely looked up from her laptop. Just tear it down and rebuild, she said, like we were discussing takeout options. It's not worth fighting Valerie over 6 in. Trust me, trust her, the woman who just spent 3 weeks pretending to be surprised about a deck I'd been planning for months. Yeah, something was definitely off about all this. Mrs. Wilson caught measuring the deck that afternoon. 3 families, she said quietly, peering over the fence. 3 families left Maple Ridge after building additions. They all used the same contractor. She wouldn't elaborate, just patted my arm and shuffled back inside. The same contractor, Ryan? That didn't make sense. The guy had a 5-star rating, had lived in the area for 6 years, and coached Little League, for crying out loud. I mentioned it to Clara that night. She was working late again, the 3rd time that week, hunched over files spread across our dining room table. Mrs. Wilson's just lonely, Clara said without looking up. She sees conspiracies everywhere. Remember when she thought the mail carrier was casing houses? But here's the thing. Mrs. Wilson had been right about that. The mail carrier was arrested for theft 3 months later. I started to say something, then noticed Clara's files. They weren't the usual Social Security paperwork. These had photos, timestamps, handwritten notes about meeting patterns, and financial transfers. Before I could ask, she swept everything into her briefcase. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something about Clara's dismissiveness, Mrs. Wilson's warning, Valerie's sudden enforcement of some obscure height regulation, it all felt choreographed somehow. I got up for water around 2 a.m. and noticed Clara's car keys were gone, her purse, too. The bedroom door was open, the bed empty. I checked my phone. 2:17 a.m. Where does a Social Security claims processor go at 2 o'clock in the morning? I walked to the window just in time to see our BMW's tail lights disappearing down Maple Ridge Drive. My stomach dropped. 12 years of marriage, and I'd never once doubted Clara. Sure, she worked weird hours sometimes, had the occasional conference call that took her into the home office. But this sneaking out in the middle of the night, I went back to bed, but stared at the ceiling until dawn, running through every interaction, every late night, every time she'd been too tired to talk about work. When she slipped back into bed at 4:30 a.m., I pretended to be asleep. She smelled like coffee and some floral perfume I didn't recognize. Ryan showed up the next morning with rolls of blueprints and a tape measure. I don't understand, he kept saying, measuring the deck height over and over. This is exactly 36 in, maximum allowable height. Exactly. Valerie had specified 30 in the violation notice. Ryan's measurements showed 36. The legal maximum was 38. She's lying, I said. Ryan looked uncomfortable. Ethan, Valerie lost her husband in a construction accident 2 years ago. She's super protective about building codes and safety violations. Maybe she just misread the measurements. Super protective. The woman had approved plans for 3 pool installations, 2 garage conversions, and the Hendersons' monstrosity of a gazebo just last year. Why target my simple deck? Then Ryan showed me something that made my blood run cold. In his truck, he had a folder. Paperwork from his last 3 jobs in Maple Ridge. The Rodriguez family on Oak Street, the Patels on Birch, the Kowalskis on Elm, all corner lots. All received violation notices. All eventually sold their homes. I thought it was a coincidence, Ryan said, quietly. But 3 and 18 months, and now Clara came home early that day, which never happened. She walked straight to the deck, stood there for a long minute, then turned to me with the strangest expression. Tear it down this weekend, she said firmly. I'll help you. We'll rebuild it shorter. Whatever Valerie wants. She was serious. My wife, who'd fought the war for 3 months over our mailbox color, wanted to surrender immediately over 6 phantom inches. No, I said, we're fighting this. Something flickered across her face. Was it fear? Pride? I couldn't tell. Ethan, she started, then stopped. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her whole body tensed. I need to make a call, she said, and disappeared into the garage. I watched through the kitchen window as she paced back and forth, gesturing emphatically at whoever was on the other end. When she came back in, she was different, somehow resolved. Do what you want about the deck, she said. I've got work to do. She grabbed her laptop and locked herself in the home office for the rest of the night. That's when I started looking. Not proud of it, but fear makes you do stupid things. I checked the mileage on Clara's car, 300 meters more than last week. Our town's only 15 miles across. I looked at our credit card statements, hotels, multiple hotels in different cities, all during her supposed office hours. I found receipts tucked in her console, coffee shops I'd never heard of, gas stations in towns 50 meters away. Even a purchase from a surveillance equipment store. Surveillance. My wife, who processed disability paperwork, needed surveillance equipment. I sat in our garage surrounded by evidence of a life I didn't recognize, and tried to make sense of it. The worst part, when I really thought about it, Clara had been acting strange for months. The late nights, the mysterious phone calls, the way she'd flinch when I walked into a room unexpectedly. I'd convinced myself it was work stress that government jobs were demanding. But what if it didn't work? What if Valerie's violation notice, Ryan's involvement, Mrs. Wilson's warning? What if it was all connected to whatever Clara was hiding? And more terrifying, what if she was working with them, not against them? I followed my wife at 2 a.m. like some desperate character in a bad movie. She'd left the bed at 1:45, dressed completely in the dark, and drove away in her BMW without lights until she reached the end of our street. I took my truck, kept 3 cars back, and felt like an absolute idiot. Where was I going with this? What was I hoping to find? She drove to the industrial park on Route 7, pulled into the parking lot of a vacant office building and just sat there. 10 minutes later, another car arrived. A man got out, 50-ish, gray hair, expensive suit, even at this hour. They talked through rolled down windows for 5 minutes. Then a third car pulled up. This one had a woman, younger, maybe early 30s, and she was crying. I watched through binoculars as Clara handed her tissues, patted her shoulder, and wrote something in a notebook. The whole scene lasted maybe 20 minutes. Then everyone drove away in different directions. Not exactly what you'd expect from an affair, right? But not what you'd expect from a social security worker either. Morning came too fast. Clara was already up, dressed for work, making coffee like nothing had happened. Sleep well? She asked, not looking at me. Fine, I lied. You? She smiled. Like the dead. The dead. What a choice of words. I pushed down the anger, the confusion, the fear, and asked, "What time did you get home last night?" I thought I heard the garage door. Her hand stopped mid-pour just for a second, but I saw it. "I didn't go anywhere," she said calmly. "You must have been dreaming." Gaslighting. My wife was actually gaslighting me. We'd been married 12 years, and she was looking me dead in the eye and lying about something I'd literally witnessed. "Right," I said, "my mistake." She kissed my cheek quick, perfunctor, and left for work. 30 seconds later, Ryan texted me. "Can I stop by? It's important." When he arrived, he looked like he hadn't slept. "Ethan, I need to show you something," he said, pulling out his phone. "I got an email last night from your wife." The email address was sandraroberts.net. Official-looking government domain. The message was short. Proceed with original deck specifications. Standard bonus applies upon violation notice. Trail. My stomach turned. Tr. Teresa Richards. No, wait. Valerie Edwards. Unless this doesn't make sense, I said. Clara doesn't have access to, but Ryan interrupted. That's not all. I cross-checked my records. All 3 previous jobs. I got similar emails, different addresses, but always variations of your wife's name. S. Roberts, Clara R., even Roberts. HOA. He looked miserable. "Ethan, I think your wife has been setting people up, including you. She told me to build the deck to specific measurements. I'd get a bonus and then Valerie would file violations. Clean profit. Except," he trailed off. "Except I was her husband. She was willing to scam her own husband." The room spun. I grabbed the counter for support. "How much?" I asked quietly. "How much did she pay you?" Ryan looked ashamed. $500 per job. "But Ethan, I swear. I thought it was legitimate. Some kind of quality control thing testing contractors." That afternoon, Valerie invited me over for coffee. "Just neighbors chatting," she'd said on the phone. Her house was immaculate. No photos of the dead husband Ryan had mentioned. No construction accident memorial. Nothing personal at all. Just pristine furniture and walls painted in WA-approved colors. I wanted to explain about the deck. She started pouring expensive-looking coffee into bone china cups. "My husband died in a construction accident. The platform gave way and fell 3 stories." Her voice cracked perfectly and tears welled up right on cue. "I know it seems strict, but every violation I write is because I don't want another family to suffer what I suffered." She touched my hand. "The deck is beautiful, Ethan." "Really? But those 6 they matter for weight distribution, for safety. I'm just trying to protect you." I almost believed her. Almost. But then I noticed her manicure. Fresh, expensive, with tiny diamonds embedded in the polish. Strange choice for a grieving widow living on a fixed income. And her coffee. I recognized the label. $70 a pound. My Social Security processor wife couldn't afford that coffee. I got home to find a bank statement on my desk. Not ours. Clara's private account I didn't know existed. $3,500 is deposited every 2 weeks from DMK Legal Services. Legal Services? My wife worked for Social Security. Why would a law firm be paying her? I photographed everything, then dug deeper. The deposits went back 6 months. Always the same amount, always the same source. $72,000 in half a year, tax-free, secret. I felt sick. Next to the statement was a burner phone. I'd never seen it before. Recent calls to numbers I didn't recognize. Texts in some kind of code. Package delivered to Target 3. Surveillance confirms pattern. Subject unaware. Proceeding to phase 2. Was I the subject? Was our house the target? I heard Clara's car in the driveway and shoved everything back where I'd found it. She walked in, saw my face, and froze. "What's wrong?" she asked carefully. "Everything?" I wanted to scream. "Everything is wrong." Instead, I said nothing. "Just tired." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I'm going out tonight," she announced. "Client emergency. Might be late. Client emergency at Social Security at 7 p.m. I installed the hidden camera while she was in the shower. A tiny thing, no bigger than a button, tucked into the bookshelf facing the living room. If she was going to lie, I needed proof. If she was working some scam with Valerie and Ryan, I needed evidence. The camera rolled as she came downstairs, dressed all in black, tactical pants, dark jacket, running shoes instead of her usual heels. She loaded equipment into a backpack, laptop, what looked like a professional camera with a long-range lens, multiple phones, and something else I couldn't quite see. "Don't wait up," she called, and was gone. I watched on my phone as she drove away. Then I reviewed the footage from earlier. Clara had come home at lunch, something she never did, and spent 30 minutes photographing our deck from every angle, measuring it with a laser tool, writing in a leather notebook. She'd even climbed onto our roof for overhead shots. This wasn't random. This was documentation. Professional documentation. But for what? For whom? Ryan called at midnight. "Ethan, I'm sorry, but I had to tell you something else. Valerie, she's not who she says she is." His voice shook. "I did some research. There's no record of a husband dying in a construction accident. No obituary, no accident report, nothing. I checked with my insurance company. They keep records of all major incidents. Valerie Edwards doesn't have a dead husband." The pieces were shifting, forming a picture I didn't want to see. "Then who is she?" I asked. Ryan was quiet for a moment. "I don't know, but Ethan, your wife does. I saw them having lunch last week. Very friendly, very familiar. They're working together on something," and I think he paused. "I think we're both being played." I hung up and watched the live feed from my hidden camera. Empty living room, empty house. My wife was out there somewhere doing something I couldn't understand with people I couldn't trust. And I was sitting in the dark, wondering how I'd gotten here, wondering when my normal life had turned into this nightmare, wondering if I'd ever really known the woman I married at all. The Sunset Motel on Highway 9 was the kind of place you'd never visit voluntarily. Peeling paint, flickering neon, the whole depressing setup. I watched Clara's BMW pull into the parking lot at 100 p.m. on a Wednesday. She'd called in sick to work, or at least that's what she'd told me. She went to room 218, knocked 3 times in some kind of pattern, and disappeared inside. I gave her 10 minutes, then crept closer. Through the thin curtains, I could see 2 figures. Clara and a middle-aged woman are sitting on the bed. The woman was crying, Clara was taking notes, and every few minutes, Clara would show her phone, and the woman would nod vigorously. After 40 minutes, they hugged, long, emotional, and Clara left. The woman stayed behind, sitting on the bed, staring at nothing. I approached her door and knocked softly. She opened it with red eyes and a suspicious look. "Who are you?" she asked. "Ethan Roberts. I'm Clarice." But she slammed the door before I could finish. Through the woods, I heard her crying harder. Ryan met me at the diner with his theory. "Your wife is playing both sides," he said, spreading documents across the table. "Look at this. She sets up the violation through me. I get my cut, but then she also counsels the victims. Tells them to fight it, hires lawyers, drags it out, while Valerie pressures them to sell. It's brilliant, really. She makes money from the scam and from helping people resist it." He showed me bank statements. His payments from that same source paying Clara DMK legal services, except Ryan's statements showed withdrawals, not deposits. He was paying them, too. "It's a shell company," Ryan insisted. "They're washing money through it. Your wife, Valerie, and maybe others. This goes deeper than just HOA violations, Ethan. This is organized." I wanted to argue to defend Clara, but I couldn't. The evidence was overwhelming. My wife was either a criminal mastermind or the world's most elaborate liar. Maybe both. That night, I found more business cards in Clara's car. Not just one identity. She had 6 different names, 6 different companies, all with her photo. Sarah Rollins, insurance investigator. Clara, legal consultant. S.R. Thompson, property assessor. Each card was worn, used, and legitimate looking. Who was this woman? I'd married Clara Roberts, a quiet government worker who liked true crime podcasts and hated cilantro. Now I was living with a ghost, a chameleon, someone who could be anyone at any time. I confronted her when she got home. "Who are you?" I demanded, throwing the cards on the table. She went pale, then red, then something else entirely. "You went through my car." Not denial, no explanation, just anger that I discovered her secrets. "You've been lying for months," I shouted. "Multiple identities, secret meetings, mysterious payments. What am I supposed to think?" Clara's jaw tightened. You're supposed to trust me, she said coldly. 12 years of marriage and you break into my car. You're running some kind of scam, she laughed. Actually, I laughed. A scam? You think I'm? She stopped herself, grabbed her keys. I can't do this right now. I need space from this. She gestured at me like I was the problem. Valerie showed up at my door an hour later. I heard shouting, she said. Sweetly, though we were 3 houses apart. Is everything okay? I almost told her everything, almost spilled, about Clara's double life, the motel meetings, the multiple identities. But something in Valerie's eyes stopped me. Too eager, too pleased. We're fine, I said shortly. She lingered, clearly fishing for details, then produced her phone. Ethan, I hate to show you this, but as a friend, the screenshots look damning. Text messages between Clara and Valerie discussing filing fraudulent violations, splitting profits, and identifying target homes. Clara, file the violation tomorrow. Valerie, but the measurements are actually legal. Clara, make something up. He'll pay anything to avoid court. I felt my knees buckle. Valerie caught my arm. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I tried to resist, but she threatened to report my husband's accident as fraud. She's been blackmailing me for months. I didn't know what else to do. Clara checked into the Marriott downtown. Separation, she called it. Until you decide to trust me again. The irony was almost funny. Almost. I sat in our empty house reviewing everything. The hidden camera footage showed Clara's methodical documentation of our deck. The bank statements proved mysterious payments. The motel meeting confirmed she was counseling someone. But about what? Fighting Valerie? Working with her? I couldn't tell anymore. Ryan's theory made sense on paper. Clara running both sides of a real estate scam, profiting from chaos she'd created. But the crying woman at the motel, the way Clara had comforted her, that seemed genuine. Unless that was part of the con, too. Professional criminals could fake anything, right? I opened my laptop to email my lawyer about divorce options when a notification popped up. Someone had sent me a file, anonymous sender, encrypted attachment. Inside was a USB drive's worth of data, files labeled Edwards Real Estate Fraud Investigation, video testimonies from 6 different families, property transfer records, a timeline going back 18 months, and photos of Valerie, not grieving widow Valerie, but smiling Valerie at house closings, celebrating Valerie, shaking hands with realtors, wealthy Valerie buying a 3rd rental property. The last file was a voice recording. This is victim 4. Clara. Roberts helped me understand what happened. Teresa Edwards forced us out using fake violations. The contractor, Ryan Carter, was in on it. They made $70,000 off our house. Then another voice. Victim 2. We lost everything. Our dream home. Clara said she's building a case, gathering evidence for a lawsuit. She's the only one who believed us. 6 families, 6 testimonies, all naming Valerie and Ryan. No one is accusing Clara. I grabbed my phone to call her, demanding an explanation when my screen lit up with a text from Ryan. Emergency. Clara just broke into my work van. Threatened me. Meet at my office now. I have security footage. Come alone. My heart raced. Security footage of Clara threatening someone. That would be proof. Undeniable proof. She was a criminal. I grabbed my keys and rushed out. Behind me on the computer, one final file opened automatically. A video. Clara speaking directly to the camera. If you're watching this, Ethan, I'm sorry for everything, but please, don't trust Ryan. Don't meet him anywhere alone. He's the video cut off. I drove anyway. Stupid, reckless, desperate. Ryan's office was above his garage in a converted workspace. He was waiting at the door. Thank God you came, he said, ushering me inside. The footage is shocking. Clara's completely lost it, but something felt wrong. The office was too neat, too staged, and Ryan kept checking his phone, nervous energy radiating off him. Show me, I demanded. He pulled up a video on his computer. Grainy, shaky footage of someone in Clara's jacket near his van. Definitely staged, definitely fake. Ryan, I said slowly. This isn't real. His face changed. You're smarter than I thought, he admitted, reaching into his desk drawer. When his hand came out, it held a gun. Sorry, Ethan. This was supposed to be clean. Quick sale. Everyone moves on. But you had to go digging. My blood ran cold. Valerie's plan? I asked. He smiled. Our plan. We've been partners for 3 years. 6 houses, 400,000 profit each. You were supposed to be number 7. He gestured to the window. The police scanner says there's a domestic disturbance here. Crazy husband threatens the contractor. Tragic shooting. Self-defense, of course. The doorbell rang. Ryan's gun stayed pointed at my chest as footsteps approached the door. Heavy boots. Multiple people. Don't move, he hissed, but his hand was shaking. The knock came loud and official. Police. Open up. Ryan's eyes widened. This wasn't part of his plan. Real cops weren't supposed to be here yet. He'd called them himself after the shooting. I said, open up. Another knock harder. Ryan gestured with the gun toward the door. Tell them everything's fine. One wrong word and he didn't finish the threat. I walked to the door, mind racing. Through the peephole, I saw 2 officers in full uniform. But something was off. The badges looked wrong. Too shiny, too new. Rental cops, fake cops. Then I heard her voice. Police. We have a warrant for Joshua Roberts. Clara's voice was authoritative and commanding. Arrest warrant for HOA violations, threatening behavior toward HOA officials. This was insane. Completely insane. I yanked the door open. These are fake cops, I shouted. Ryan's trying to, but the 2 men in uniform pushed past me. Subject is delusional, Ryan announced calmly, slipping the gun back into his drawer. Use force if necessary. The taller one, Tony, according to his badge, reached for my arm. Then Clara appeared behind them. Bathrobe over street clothes, no badge, no authority, just my wife looking absolutely furious. Gentlemen, she said quietly, you're committing felony fraud. Step aside. The shorter cop, Rick, made the mistake of laughing. Tony made the bigger mistake of reaching for Clara's arm. What happened next took maybe 3 seconds. Clara twisted, ducked, and suddenly Tony was face down on Ryan's porch, his fake badge clattering away. Rick sprinted down the street like the devil was chasing him. Ryan lunged for the desk drawer, but Clara was faster. One kick sent the drawer slamming shut on his fingers. Recording everything, she announced, pointing to her phone mounted on the railing, including you pulling a gun on my husband. Car doors slammed. Real police this time. 3 squad cars, lights flashing, and in the middle of them, a silver sedan containing a man in an expensive suit. Martin Hale introduced himself as we sat in Ryan's office, now a crime scene. An attorney representing 6 families was defrauded by Teresa Edwards and Ryan Carter, he explained. Clara's been my investigator for 4 months. I stared at my wife, who was calmly giving her statement to a detective. Investigator? I repeated stupidly. David smiled sympathetically. Private investigator licensed by the state. Specializes in real estate fraud. Best in the business. He showed me his identification, his bar card, and documentation of the civil lawsuit. Valerie targets corner lots because they sell for premium prices. Ryan creates violations using his contractor access. They pressure families to sell fast, below market value. Then Valerie flips them for a huge profit. Classic scheme. I watched Clara demonstrate on a notepad how Ryan had twisted my deck requirements. She told him to build it exactly to code. David continued, then recommended him to you through fake reviews online. Valerie took the bait, tried her usual violation scam, and Clara documented everything. I felt like an idiot. The hidden cameras, the surveillance, the late-night meetings, all legitimate investigation work. The crying woman at the motel, victim testimony. The multiple business cards cover identities for different cases. The payments from DMK Legal, that was David M. Walker paying his investigator. But the email, I protested. Ryan got an email from Clara telling him to create the violation. David shook his head, spoofed. Valerie sent it pretending to be Clara to manipulate Ryan into thinking he had backup. Classic misdirection. My wife appeared in the doorway looking exhausted. Can I talk to Ethan? She asked quietly. The detective nodded and everyone filed out, leaving us alone in the office where Ryan had almost killed me. You made me the bait, I said finally. For 4 months, you let me think you were having an affair. Let me doubt everything, all to catch Valerie. Clara sat heavily in Ryan's chair. I wanted to tell you every single day, but victims die in these cases, Ethan. Witnesses disappear. I couldn't risk what? That I'd tell someone? That I'd protect my own wife? She looked at me then. Really looked at me. You installed cameras in our house. You followed me. You went through my private files. Her voice cracked. You thought I was a criminal, Ethan. You actually believed I could because you lied. I shouted. Every day, every night, sneaking around, secret phones, mysterious payments. What was I supposed to think? We sat in silence, the weight of 4 months of deception crushing us both. I was protecting you, Clara whispered. I was trying to trust you, I countered. Neither of us had the moral high ground here. Outside, they were loading Ryan into a squad car. Valerie had been arrested at home, apparently trying to flee through her backyard with a suitcase full of cash. The two fake cops were being questioned separately, already turning on each other. The USB drive, Clara said quietly. Did you open the last file? My video message. I shook my head. She pulled out her phone. Showed me the full recording I'd only seen half of. Her face filled the screen, urgent and afraid. If you're watching this, Ethan, I'm sorry for everything. But please don't trust Ryan. Don't meet him anywhere alone. He's dangerous and he's desperate. And if he thinks you know too much. The video showed her checking her watch. I'm heading to his office now. If I'm right, he's setting a trap. If I'm wrong, I owe him an apology. Either way, please be careful. I love you. I should have said that more. I love you, Ethan. Remember that. The timestamp showed she'd recorded it an hour before Ryan's emergency text to me. She'd known. She'd come to save me. Fake cops and all. How did you know about the fake cops? I asked. Clara smiled weakly. Because I told Valerie about them, said they were special security I'd hired to intimidate you if you didn't cooperate with the deck teardown. She jumped at the idea, and hired the same guys for her own intimidation scheme. She'd played Valerie perfectly, made her think Clara was an ally, got her to reveal her tactics, then turned it all around. The deck, I said suddenly. You knew all along it would trigger the investigation. She nodded. I planted the Yelp review recommending Ryan posted in the neighborhood forum. Valerie contacted him and then you hired him based on my suggestion. I manipulated everything. The admission hung between us. She'd used our anniversary, our home, our marriage as weapons in her investigation. Was any of it real? I asked quietly. The surprise, the happiness, us. Clara's eyes filled with tears. All of it. Every moment except the lies. Which moments were which, though? That was the question neither of us could answer. David knocked on the doorframe. Clara, we need your statement downtown. Ethan, you too as a witness and victim. We stood awkward and broken. 12 years of trust shattered by 4 months of necessary deception and desperate suspicion. As we walked to separate cars, her with David, me with the detective, I caught her eye one last time. She mouthed, I'm sorry. And I nodded because what else could I do? Sorry, I didn't fix this. Sorry, didn't rebuild what we'd torn down, but it was something. And right now, something was more than we'd had in months. The detective held the car door for me. Hell of a wife you've got there, he commented. I laughed bitterly. Hell of a wife indeed. The question was whether I still had a wife at all, or just a stranger who'd been playing a role in my life, in my home, in my bed, all for a case that was finally, terribly, completely closed. The detective interviewed me for 3 hours downtown, going through every detail of Ryan's trap. The gun, the threats, his casual admission that I was supposed to be victim number 7 in his and Valerie's scheme. You're lucky your wife has such good timing, Detective Carter said, closing his notebook. 5 more minutes, and we'd be investigating a homicide instead of fraud. Lucky, right? I felt anything but lucky as I signed my statement and walked out into the station's harsh fluorescent lighting. Clara was still being interviewed, her real profession finally on display. Through the glass, I watched her review crime scene photos with professional detachment, pointing out evidence with the expertise I'd never known she possessed. Martin Hale approached me in the waiting area. She really is the best, he said, following my gaze. 6 months ago, I had 1 client. Now, I'm representing 12 families with more calling every day. Clara exposed an entire network, 12 families, all while I'd been convinced she was cheating on me. The fake cops, I said suddenly. Who were they really? David consulted his phone. Tony and Rick Sullivan. Small-time actor Valerie found it on a casting. website promised them $500 for 30 minutes of performance art. They thought they were filming a prank video for social media. He shook his head. When Clara identified herself as a pie and showed them the recording equipment, Rick panicked and ran. Tony was dumb enough to try grabbing her, thinking he could salvage the scene. I remembered watching Tony hit the porch. Clara's moves so quick and professional. She does martial arts. David smiled slightly. Black belt in 3 styles. Required for her license after a stalker case went wrong 5 years ago. Before you, obviously, before me. There was so much about Clara I didn't know. The investigation, I asked, was it worth it? Destroying our marriage for a fraud case? David's expression turned serious. The Johnsons lost their retirement home. The Patels split up over the financial stress. The Rodriguez family's daughter dropped out of college. Was it worth it? Ask them. They brought Valerie in handcuffs an hour later. She'd tried to flee through her backyard with $300,000 in cash, property deeds, and Ryan's confession recorded on a burner phone. Insurance. The detective said she'd been recording Ryan since the beginning in case it all went south. Professional criminals, both of them. As Valerie passed, she locked eyes with me. No more grieving widow acts. No more concerned neighbors. Just a cold calculation. Your wife's smarter than you. She hissed as the guards pulled her along. Smarter than all of us. Hope you remember that. The door clanged shut behind her. Clara emerged from her interview room looking exhausted. They want me back tomorrow for Ryan's arraignment, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I'll be staying at the Marriott again tonight. Give us both space to process. Process like we were dealing with paperwork instead of the collapse of our entire relationship. Did you really think I was having an affair? She asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. Outside, the city hummed with normal people living normal lives, not wondering if their spouse was a criminal or a hero or something in between. Yes, I finally admitted. Every sign pointed to it. The late nights, the secret phones, the mysterious meetings. What else was I supposed to think? Clara nodded slowly. And I thought you trusted me. 12 years. And I thought we were solid enough that you'd wait for an explanation instead of installing surveillance. We were both right. We were both wrong. The elevator dinged and David stepped out with a younger woman. I recognized the crying victim from the motel. Mrs. Peterson wanted to meet you, David said. The woman approached hesitantly. Your wife saved my family, she said, tears starting again. Valerie and Ryan destroyed us, and Clara was the only one who believed our story. Who documented everything? Who found the other victims? Who built the case? She grabbed Clara's hands. You're a hero, both of you. If you hadn't been willing to go through this investigation, Valerie would still be out there ruining lives. Clara squeezed her hands back. Professional mask slipping for just a moment. This was why she did it. Not for money or glory, but for people like Mrs. Peterson, who had nowhere else to turn. Ryan's arraignment was scheduled for the next morning, but his lawyer showed up at the station that night with a plea offer. Full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. Detective Carter explained he's willing to testify against Valerie, provide all financial records, and identify other potential victims in neighboring towns. Neighboring towns. This was bigger than just Maple Ridge. How many houses? I asked. Barnes consulted his notes. Preliminary count, 19 properties over 3 years. Estimated total profit exceeds $2 million. $2 million. And I'd been worried about $8,000 for a deck. Clara appeared beside me, smelling of burnt coffee and stress. Ryan's lawyer wants to talk, she said separately. He thinks he can get Ryan's sentence down to 18 months if we support the plea deal. We were still a team. I looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time since this nightmare began. The dark circles under her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept rubbing her left wrist where Tony had grabbed her. My wife, the stranger, the hero, the liar, all the same person. What do you think? I asked. Clara seemed surprised I'd asked her opinion. I think justice matters more than revenge. If Ryan helps us find all the victims, get them restitution, expose anyone else involved, that's worth more than watching him rot in prison. She glanced at me. But it's your call, too. He threatened you, almost killed you. You have the right to want maximum punishment. This was new territory for us. Before, we decided everything together. What color to paint the kitchen, where to vacation, whether to have kids someday. Now, we were negotiating criminal plea deals like strangers at a business meeting. I want Valerie to pay, I said finally. If Ryan helps make that happen, I can live with a lighter sentence. Clara nodded, relief flickering across her face. I'll tell David. As she walked away, Detective Carter cleared his throat. For what it's worth, your wife never stopped wearing her wedding ring. Even undercover, even when she was pretending to be someone else, that ring never came off. I looked down at my own hand. I'd taken mine off 3 days ago when I'd convinced myself Clara was a criminal. It was still in my pocket. A small circle of gold carrying the weight of 12 years. The media showed up at dawn. News vans, reporters, someone's drone buzzing overhead. Massive HOA fraud exposed. The headlines would read, Private investigator brings down real estate scheme. Clara's bats would be all over the news. Her real name, her real profession, everything exposed. How do you feel about your wife's secret identity? A reporter shouted as I tried to reach my car. How did I feel? Betrayed, proud, angry, grateful, confused, heartbroken. All of it at once. No comment. I managed, pushing through the crowd. My phone buzzed. Clara, I'm sorry about the media. I didn't think they'd find you. If you need to get away, use the spare key to my office. It's quiet there. Code is our anniversary. Our anniversary. The same anniversary I had celebrated by building a deck that had exposed criminal corruption and destroyed our marriage. The irony wasn't lost on me. I drove to her office instead of home. The space was smaller than I expected, neat and professional with case files organized by color code, a wall of surveillance equipment and photos of victims, including me, pinned to a corkboard with red string connecting the dots. This was Clara's real world, a world I'd never been part of, never known existed. On her desk was a framed photo I'd never seen before. Use on our wedding day 12 years ago, laughing at something the photographer had said. Clara looked so young, so happy, so certain of her future. I picked it up, studying her face, trying to reconcile that hopeful bride with the woman who had used our anniversary as the cornerstone of an investigation. The door opened. Clara stood there holding 2 coffees from the place she'd gone at 2 a.m. all those times. Thought you might need this, she said quietly, setting 1 cup on the desk. She noticed me holding the photo. I keep it there to remind myself why I do this, why the lying, the danger, the stress is worth it. To protect people, to protect families like ours used to be, past tense. The words hung heavy in the small office. Outside, the city was waking up to news of Valerie's arrest, Ryan's cooperation, and justice finally being served. Inside, 2 people who had promised forever to each other stood in the wreckage of those promises, holding coffee and broken pieces of trust, wondering if anything could be rebuilt from ruins. I have to testify at Ryan's arraignment in 2 hours, Clara said, checking her watch. The same watch I'd given her for our 10th anniversary. She'd worn it throughout the entire investigation, even when she was pretending to be someone else. I know, I said. I'll be there as a witness, not as. I couldn't finish. Not as her husband, not as her partner, not as anything anymore. She nodded, understanding what I couldn't say. As she turned to leave, I called out, Clara. She paused at the door. Yeah, that video message on the USB. Did you mean it? She smiled sadly. Every word, especially the part about loving you. I should have said it more. The door closed softly behind her, leaving me alone with cold coffee and the echo of words that might have been goodbye. The courthouse was packed. Every family Valerie and Ryan had defrauded filled the gallery along with neighbors from Maple Ridge, reporters and curious onlookers who had seen the morning news. I sat in the 3rd row, close enough to see everything, but far enough to maintain emotional distance. Clara sat with Martin Hale at the prosecutor's table, her investigator credentials on full display. She'd changed from her usual casual style into a sharp navy suit, her hair pulled back every inch, the professional who'd brought down a criminal empire. Valerie's lawyer, a slick corporate type who probably cost more than my annual salary, argued entrapment. My client was manipulated by a private investigator, who embedded herself in the community, created false scenarios, and entrapped innocent people into criminal acts. The Prosecutor, an older woman named Ellen Santos, raised an eyebrow. Your client hired actors to impersonate police officers, held them at gunpoint, and threatened murder. Which part of that was entrapment? Ryan entered in an orange jumpsuit, looking nothing like the friendly contractor who'd coached Little League and built neighborhood decks. His lawyer had negotiated a deal. Full cooperation for reduced charges. Your Honor, Ryan's attorney began. My client wishes to allocate and provide substantial assistance to the prosecution. Judge Morrison, a stern woman in her 60s, peered over her reading glasses. Mr. Clark, do you understand you're waiving your right to trial by allocating these charges? Ryan nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I want to tell the truth about everything. What followed was 3 hours of testimony that painted Valerie as the mastermind and Ryan as her increasingly reluctant partner. He explained how Valerie had approached him 4 years ago with a business opportunity. She'd identified target homes, always corner lots, always owned by families stretched thin financially, and Ryan would create plausible code violations. She said it was just helping the market, Ryan testified, getting rid of people who couldn't really afford the neighborhood anyway, making room for better homeowners, code for wealthier, whiter, more compliant with Valerie's vision of Maple Ridge. The victim impact statements began after lunch. Mrs. Rodriguez spoke first, her voice shaking. We saved 15 years for that house, our dream home. Then suddenly, our garage was illegal, our deck unsafe, our fence non-compliant. Every month, something new. We couldn't afford to fight. We sold for $100,000 less than market value. Her husband held her hand. Valerie bought it 3 months later through an LLC, flipped it for $200,000 profit. That was our retirement. Our daughter's college. Our future 6 families told similar stories. The Johnsons separated from stress. The Patel's sons' medical bills went unpaid. The Kowalskis declared bankruptcy. Lives destroyed by greed disguised as civic duty. When Clara testified as expert witness, the courtroom hushed. Attorney Walker hired me after 3 families reported patterns of HOA harassment leading to forced sales. She explained. Standard investigative procedure indicated a coordinated fraud scheme. Valerie's lawyer went after her. Isn't it true, Ms. Roberts, that you deceived your own husband during this investigation? Clara's jaw tightened. I maintained cover to protect witnesses and evidence integrity. You manipulated him into hiring Mr. Clark, orchestrated the scenario, and let him believe you were unfaithful. Standard procedure. Clara's hands clenched. My personal life has no bearing on the evidence. But it did. Everyone knew it. The lawyer pressed. How many families did you use as bait? How many did you manipulate? Clara looked at Valerie. I documented crimes already in progress. Ms. Edwards preyed on families for years before I was hired. My work stopped her, not started her. The judge recessed, but damage was done. In the hallway, Mrs. Wilson approached. I tried to warn you. She said. Saw it happen to 3 families before yours. Nobody believed me until Clara investigated. She patted my arm. Clara's a good woman. Saved the neighborhood. Don't forget that when you're angry about lying, easy for her to say. She hadn't watched her marriage implode. But she'd been right about everything else. Valerie's sentencing came swiftly. 5 years in county jail, full restitution estimated at $480,000, and a permanent ban from HOA leadership. You perverted the concept of community, Judge Morrison said. You preyed on families, destroyed lives, and lined your pockets. This court finds your actions reprehensible. Valerie stood cold, only reacting when the bailiff cuffed her. She turned towards Clara. This isn't over, she mouthed, screaming about appeals and misconduct as she was led away. Ryan received 3 years with cooperation credit. His testimony and records had been damning. Not the architect, Judge Morrison told him, but a willing participant who profited from suffering. The fake cops, Tony and Rick, received 18 months probation and community service. Stupid choices, the judge said, but fraud is fraud. As the courtroom cleared, Martin Hale gathered his team. Civil suit next month. We're going after Valerie's properties, accounts, everything. Full restitution plus damages. He looked at me. That includes you, Ethan. Your deck, emotional distress, everything. Money, like money could fix what broke. Clara appeared beside me, armor cracking. Can we talk, please? We slipped into an empty conference room. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. I'm leaving the investigation business, Clara said. After this case, I'm done. David offered me consulting, reforming HOA laws, training investigators in ethics, desk work, 9 to 5, no more undercover, no more lies. She was offering to change her career for me, for us. The cameras, I said softly. I'm sorry I installed them. I'm sorry I gave you reason to. We're both guilty, both victims in different ways. I don't know if I can trust you again, I admitted. I don't know if I can trust you, she replied. You believed the worst of me, so quick to think I was a criminal instead of waiting, asking, having faith. The truth hurt. I had jumped to conclusions, let suspicion override 12 years of partnership, but she had lied consistently, professionally. Where do we go from here? I asked. Clara pulled out a manila folder, divorce papers needing only signatures. Option 1 or Option 2, counseling. Complete transparency. No secrets, no investigations. We try to rebuild. She slid over a business card. I booked an appointment. Both our names. You can cancel or show up. Your choice, Ethan. I looked at the papers, then at my wife, my stranger, my partner, my betrayer. Outside, the sunset painted the courthouse gold. Inside, 12 years of marriage balanced against 4 months of lies. I'll think about it, I said. Clara nodded, stood, paused at the door. For what it's worth, I'd choose differently now. I'd tell you from the start, risk the case. Risk everything, because losing you is worse than any criminal escaping. She left before I could answer. I sat alone with papers and a card, knowing whatever I chose would define my life. Justice was served. Valerie would pay. Victims would get restitution. The neighborhood would heal. But could we? That was the question no judge could answer. No evidence could prove. Dr. Patricia Morrison's office smelled of lavender and old books. Not the trial judge. Different Morrison. Same no-nonsense demeanor. Clara sat at one end of the couch. I at the other, a canyon of space between us. So Dr. Morrison said, pen poised. Why are you here? Silence. Finally, Clara. Because I lied to my husband for 4 months. Me? Because my wife made me bait in a criminal case. Dr. Morrison arched an eyebrow. You're clear on each other's faults. What about your own? That silenced us. Over 6 weeks, we attended sessions twice weekly. We wrote letters never sent, role-played hard conversations, even arranged ourselves physically to show emotions. Clara pressed against the door, ready to flee. I stood fortified, behind a desk. You've both faced betrayal, Dr. Morrison said in week 4. Different forms, same damage. Clara, you chose justice over partnership. Ethan, you chose suspicion over communication. The day after our first session, Clara quit PI work. She turned down 3 cases, ended her license, and boxed her surveillance gear. Not worth losing you, she said, carrying boxes to storage. Martin Hale offered her consulting instead. HOA reform, ethical training, desk hours. She'd start after the civil trial. I moved back after 2 months of separation, starting in the guest room. Small steps, Dr. Morrison said. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. That first week was awkward. We cooked dinners filled with small talk about traffic and weather. We watched television from opposite ends of the couch. We said good night in the hallway, heading to separate beds. Progress looked like Clara teaching self-defense at the community center while I showed up to support. Progress looked like her book club learning her real profession and deciding she was cooler than they imagined. Progress looked like our first real laugh when Valerie's prison interview aired, claiming she was the real victim of investigator entrapment. Clara snorted. She hired fake cops, right? I said, the audacity. We cracked up. Genuine laughter. Months overdue. The neighborhood transformed too. Mrs. Wilson was elected HOA president on a platform of transparency and common sense. Her first acts, term limits, and public audits. The annual HOA meeting became deck day, barbecue, safety checks, and stories about the great HOA takedown of 2024. Support groups formed. David Walker connected victims into a monthly network at the community center. Clara sometimes attended, not as investigator, but as survivor. We all lost something, Mrs. Rodriguez said, but we gained each other. Sentimental, but true. After 4 months of counseling, Dr. Morrison gave us homework. Complete transparency. Share one secret, one fear, one hope. We did it on the deck that had started everything. Clara admitted, I kept your anniversary receipt, knew about the deck weeks early, pretended surprise, then used it for the investigation. I felt guilty since day one. My turn. I almost filed for divorce. Papers in my car 3 times. Pride stopped me from admitting I still loved you. That night, I carried pillows back to the master bedroom. Nothing dramatic, just clean sheets and hours of late-night talking. 6 months after the fake cops incident, we had our anniversary for real. Dinner at the fancy Italian place downtown. To survive, Clara toasted. To rebuild, I countered. Our glasses clinked ked, and this time we meant it. The civil trial ended in our favor. Teresa's assets liquidated. Victims received restitution and damages. My share, $87,000. Debt, costs, emotional distress, everything. I deposited it into our joint account, the one Clara never knew I'd kept. Progress meant forgiveness without forgetting. Choosing each other, even when it hurt. Building something new from the wreckage we nearly destroyed. But we weren't perfect. We still fought. Clara still scanned exits in restaurants, old instincts intact. I still felt anxiety when she came home late. Dr. Morrison had warned, healing isn't linear. Bad days, triggers, setbacks. The goal isn't perfection. It's choosing each other. Anyway, 1 year after the fake cops, we hosted a barbecue. Everyone came, even families who bought Valerie's foreclosed homes at fair market value. Mrs. Rodriguez brought salsa, the Johnsons reunited, and the Patels' yin was healthy. Speech, someone shouted. Clara looked at me. I nodded. She stood on our deck. Once the symbol of everything wrong, now survival. A year ago, I thought justice and marriage were separate. I was wrong. The best justice is creating good from terrible. Building community from chaos. That's what we've done together. She looked at me. All of us. The applause was genuine. Healing was ongoing. We weren't fixed, but we were trying. And sometimes trying is enough. The celebration was still buzzing when Martin Hale arrived with a manila folder. Sorry to interrupt, he said, taking a beer. But you need to see this. Inside were letters from every victim's family. Thank yous, photos, updates. The Rodriguez had bought a better home. The Patel's son earned a scholarship. The Johnsons were renewing vows. You started this, David told Clara. You gave them hope when they had none. Tears filled her eyes as she read. And I remembered what anger had made me forget. Clara helped people. That was her calling. The case broke us temporarily, but it saved dozens permanently. Mrs. Wilson clinked ked her glass. Official WA business, she declared. We're renaming the community garden. The Roberts Memorial Garden. Clara nearly spit her drink. We're not dead. Mrs. Wilson shrugged. You saved the neighborhood. Deal with it. Laughter erupted, glasses raised, and something shifted in me. This was our people, our home. The next week, Ryan's parole letter arrived. Starting a nonprofit for WA abuse victims. I know I was wrong. I'll spend my life making it right. I showed Clara. She read it twice, then set it down. Forgiveness is complicated. He nearly killed you, but he also helped convict Valerie. I don't have to forgive him to acknowledge he's trying. I didn't forgive him either. Maybe someday, maybe never. But I could recognize the effort. Valerie's early release petitions failed. Medical appeal, good behavior, overcrowding, all denied. Serving full sentences, the news reported. Denied parole for lack of remorse and threats toward the investigator. Even from prison, Valerie never changed. Clara's consulting firm thrived. She trained investigators on ethical undercover work, testified before legislators on WA reform, even wrote a manual on balancing justice with integrity. This is my penance, she said one night, typing late. Teaching others to do it better than I did. You caught the bad guys, I reminded her. Yeah, she said softly. But I hurt good people in the process. That's on me forever. The surprise came when my daughter visited with my grandchildren. Grandma? 6-year-old Emma asked Clara. Did you really catch bad guys? Clara smiled, pulling her close. I helped stop people hurting families. Like a detective. Like the police? Like a private detective. Different but similar. Cool. I want to be a detective, too. My daughter rolled her eyes. Great. Now she'll be wiring her dollhouse. We all laughed, but it was beautiful. Clara's work, despite the pain, inspired hope in the next generation. David called with an update. New case, HOA fraud, different state, same pattern. They specifically asked for Clara. Excitement flickered then died. I'm retired, she said. But I can't recommend someone who won't sacrifice their marriage. She hung up, looked at me. Did I just turn down $50,000? You turned down 50,000 fights about trust, I said. She nodded. Worth it. We learned to communicate differently. Clara told me about odd calls right away. I asked questions instead of assuming. Not perfect. Old wounds still bled, but we were trying. At 18 months, a developer offered $2 million for our block. Luxury condos, the letter promised. We called a neighborhood meeting. Mrs. Wilson presided with Valerie's old gavel, all in favor of telling them where to stick it. Every hand rose unanimous, she declared. This is our home, our community. And we celebrated with pizza and beer on our deck, watching grandchildren play with neighborhood kids. Think we'll ever tell Emma the whole truth? Clara asked. About the fake cops, the investigation, almost divorcing. Maybe when she's older, I said. For now, let her think Grandma's just a cool detective. Clara leaned in. I was cool, right? That wrist lock on Tony. Totally cool. Scary cool. Hot cool. She laughed, the sound carrying over a backyard full of neighbors and second chances. The sun set over Maple Ridge. Golden light like the day I built the deck. The day everything changed. Or maybe nothing changed. Maybe it just revealed what was always there. A community worth protecting. A marriage worth saving. Justice worth pursuing. Clara's phone buzzed. Another case. She silenced it. Not worth it, she said, fingers entwined with mine. Never was. On that infamous deck, surrounded by people we'd saved and people who'd saved us. I understood. Valerie sat in prison. Ryan was rebuilding. The victims were healing. The neighborhood thrived, and we were still here, still married, still choosing each other despite everything that tried to tear us apart. Happy anniversary, Clara whispered. Our real date was months away, but I knew every day we stayed was an anniversary now. Every sunset proves that love, like justice, demands sacrifice. Happy anniversary, I whispered back. The deck stood strong beneath us. We held strong, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. This is just one of the incredible true stories you'll find here on Echo Stories. If you enjoyed this journey through deception, justice, and redemption, hit that like button. Until next time, remember sometimes the people closest to us are the biggest mysteries of all.